Hey y'all, how are you? It's your friend Rabbi Bregman. End of the day. Hadn't recorded a Torah video. Shared a Torah thought in too long, a day or two, publicly. So I thought this would be a good time to do so. I want to share with you an insight that I shared at the Shabbos table, at the Shabbat table this past weekend, all of yesterday. It's something that I speak about in my commentary, short and sweet on the Parsha. Short and sweet on the Parsha by, hey, Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Bregman. Some of you don't know that I wrote that work. It's about 550 pages. This is not a new copy, it's a used copy. But thank God it was the best-selling Torah work in the world the last 2 years. Best-selling on the weekly Torah portion. Sold out in 4 continents. And I only have a couple copies left. They don't really exist anymore in the world. But meanwhile, thought I'd share with you something I said at the Shabbos table that you'd find interesting. It's a point that the Torah brings about how to acquire wisdom and the acquisition of wisdom. That's what I want to speak to you about. The Talmud brings this statement in 2 places, one of which, for example, is in Tractate Makos, and it says as follows. The Talmud is speaking about a person who's acquired wisdom, and the person is quoted as saying as follows: I have acquired wisdom, learning. I've studied a lot. I acquired wisdom from my teachers, even more than that from my peers, and most of all from my students. I'll repeat it again. I acquired wisdom from my teachers, even more wisdom. The person says they learned from their peers, and most of all, the person says that he learned from his talmidim. He learned from his students. So the question is why? And if you pay close attention, that Gemara, that passage in the Talmud seems to be in reverse. I would think that the most Torah you'd learn, that would be the most wisdom, the most Torah, that would be from my teachers. I mean, they're older than you usually, they have more wisdom. There's a reason that you're the Talmud, the disciple, and they're the Rabbi, the teacher. So you would think that you learn the most from the teacher. And less than that, maybe you learn from your peers. They think they had something they could offer you, and vice versa. And least of all, you would think you would learn from your students. Like, how are you going to learn the most from your students? There's a reason why they're the Talmud, the student, and you're the teacher. They're often younger than you. It could be that they're 18 and you're 40. I don't know, So why should it be like that? The Gemara, the Talmud seems to be teaching this backwards, teaching it the point in reverse. In Torah, we'd call it adarabba, backwards. In Yiddish, we'd say pun fakert. It seems to be totally the opposite. So what's this about? So some of the commentaries say that this passage is giving us a great lesson into the acquisition of wisdom and how Hashem really does it. See, when you learn Torah, you see that God doesn't always run the world, at least when the spiritual realm doesn't work the way you would think the rest of the world works, okay? So number one, you have to know that knowing Torah and being koine Torah, to acquire Torah, it's a gift from Hashem. It's a present from Hashem. Torah knowledge is not just like random facts and figures and information. You have to actually receive it as a present from Hashem. In fact, one midrash says that at Har Sinai, God taught everything to Moshe Rabbeinu, to Moses. Like, he would teach it and forget it, teach it, and Moses would forget it. He would teach it and Moses would forget it. It went on and on and on and on and again till Hashem gave all that Torah to Moshe as a present. You understand? Because it ultimately has to be, you do the work to try to understand it, but ultimately it comes into you as a gift from Hashem. Okay. So with that knowledge, that Torah comes into you by Hashem, and it's not just regular knowledge, that's the opening key you need to begin to understand this passage. The way it works, and here's the key, the second key to understanding this seemingly enigmatic passage in the Talmud, is you have to know that the acquisition of Torah vis-a-vis others is commensurate with the extent to which people look to you to be their fountain for learning and wisdom. Okay? So the more somebody looks to you to be their source of knowledge of Hashem and Torah and wisdom, to that extent, Hashem will pour wisdom into you in order to be able to service that person. It's kind of interesting, right? So what happens? So knowing that, and this speaks about it in the Jewish mystical writings a bit more, but here's what you need to know. I don't want to make this video too complicated or long. So when the Talmud says, the person says, I have learned Torah from my teachers, I have learned Torah from my teachers, that's because the teachers don't really expect to learn that much from you. Well, they might pick up a couple things, they think. So since your teachers don't think they're going to learn that much from you, Hashem doesn't pour too much Torah into you on behalf of those teachers. That's number one. From your peers, you learn more. Why? Your peers are more open to the idea that they may pick up wisdom from you. And since that's the case, Hashem pours more wisdom into you in order to accommodate what they're looking for. And who looks to receive the most Torah from you? You know the answer. That is your Talmidim. That is your students. So because they are going to be thirsty and looking to you for wisdom, in their merit, Hashem pours the most Torah into you. So now you see why the passage makes sense. It makes sense from the perspective of understanding that the more somebody looks to you to be their source of wisdom and understanding, the more Hashem's going to make out of you. So why is that important? Well, number one, I started out by saying that you have to remember that Torah is not just regular knowledge and wisdom that just randomly a person can collect. You have to have the right midot, the right character traits to hold it and retain it and keep it. We'll speak about that maybe in another video. I do speak about that in short and sweet. Rav Chaim Shmulevitz, the Mira. Hey y'all, had to move spots because I record all my videos pretty much on my iPhone and I ran out of film. So had to do a little data dump so I could finish it. But basically, there's a lot more to say. The main takeaway I want you to take from right now is that if you want to spread Torah, you want to help people, you want to uplift people, it does matter how many people follow you and are interested in learning from you. It does matter, not just in terms of the number of people and lives you will touch, but whether you become the person who contains the wisdom in the first place that can change lives. It does matter if people want to learn from you, because that impacts your ability to acquire the wisdom in the first place. Hope you enjoyed this clip. This is Rabbi Bregman of the Jewish Executive Learning Network, BregmanSuccess.com. Please share this title with other people. If you want a copy of this work, reach out to me. Let's talk about it. I got a few in the world left.